Alrighty, so after we did cladograms last lecture, we are now going to do our dichotomous keys, which is a huge part of taxonomy and an easy way for us to identify organisms. So the objective is students will be able to list characteristics of and be able to identify an organism by reading a dichotomous key. But we're going to start out with the do now in case you need a refresher on how to do cladograms, right? So using this cladogram shown on the screen, I want you to answer. What are the differences between amphibians and crocodiles? Right? Tell me what the trait differences are, the little red notches. So if you're looking between amphibians and between crocodiles, you're going to trace the amphibian back to here, and then we're going to go up and over to crocodiles. And you see there's amniotic egg, 1, and then eggs with shells, 2, before you reach crocodiles. So there are 2 differences. That is the amniotic egg and the eggs with shells. Which animal do birds have the most recent common ancestor with? So the hint is, who has the least amount of differences? So is there a relationship that they have with another organism on here that has the fewest red tick marks? And what is that organism? The answer would be crocodile. And that's kind of weird to think about, right? Birds and crocodiles, they don't have very similar characteristics just by physically looking at them. But if you look at the birds and the crocodiles, not only do we know that up here is further close to present time, right? This is back here is a long time ago, and this is most recent and currently existing. So this separation right here is pretty close to present time. And then there's no red tick marks between the crocodiles and the birds, right? You might think crocodiles are more similar to amphibians, but they're actually more close to the birds based on the characteristics of their existence, how they live, how they get food, how they give birth, right? So instead of cladograms, now we're going to move on to dichotomous keys. And di means 2, right? Dihybrid crosses that we're going to do later when we do genetics, right? So di is a prefix that means 2. And so dichotomous keys help you identify organisms by using yes or no questions about their characteristics. So there's only 2 options each time you have a question asked in a dichotomous key. It's either yes, this organism is like that, or no, this organism is not like that. And so it makes it super easy because then the branches only follow 2 at a time, right? So let's go, for example, we're trying to identify a bunch of organisms and you're going to ask a question. For this animal, does it have red blood or no red blood, right? Yes or no. And the animals that have red blood would be mammals, lizards, birds, and fish. And then if no, you're going to ask another question. Do they have hard bodies or do they have soft bodies, right? Yes or no. And the answer is if they have hard bodies and they do not have red blood, then they're an insect. If they do not have red blood and they have soft bodies, you're going to ask one more question to kind of differentiate them. And yes or no, does it have a shell or no shell? So a shellfish like clams and oysters are animals that have shells, even though the actual body is soft, and do not have red blood. On the other hand, animals that do not have shells, have soft bodies, and no red blood are jellyfish. So as you can see, each time the branch occurs when there's a question asked about a characteristic, it's either yes or no. And that's how a dichotomous key works. So here's another example. So we're going to look at this dichotomous key where you have vertebrate, right? Which means it has a spinal cord. It has a vertebrae, okay? So yes fur or no fur. If yes, then it's going to be a mammal. If no, we're going to ask another question, right? If this animal with a spinal cord does not have fur, yes feathers or no feathers. If yes feathers, then bird. If no feathers, let's ask another question. Does this animal that has a spine, no fur, and no feathers, does it have dry skin or moist skin? If it has dry skin, it's a reptile. Okay, if it has moist skin or no dry skin, then we're gonna ask another question and one last question. So does this animal with a spinal cord, no fur, no feathers, and moist skin, does it have scales or does it have no scales? And if it has scales, then it's probably a fish. And if it has no scales, it's probably an amphibian. Okay, so again, each time you see the branch, you have a yes or no question. And each time you have an answer, then you're done with that branch. But each time there is still no answer because there's a lot of options that fall under there, then you've got to ask another question until your branches end with one single organism or one single species. Because once you have figured out how to find them out, then you're done trying to, make more branches on that side. Obviously, you can have multiple branches, but each yes or no question should exclude one species at a time in order to make the tree flow on and easy to find organisms. So usually dichotomous keys actually look like this. So it's not as cool as the actual tree chart flowing that we saw here and here, but this actually is pretty easy to use. So I'm going to show you some examples here. So we're going to follow along with a non-realistic example, and then you guys will actually get to practice with more realistic examples. So here we have this first alien, and we're going to use this dichotomous key underneath to tell us the names of these aliens or the alien species. So if you look at this alien, we always start with step one. It's like any instructions, any recipe, any ingredient stuff. You're going to read step one first always. So you always start at step one. Okay. So step one, is the mouth open or is the mouth not open? So we're looking at this little green boy over here, and we see that the mouth is open, and it says to go to 2. So we're going to go to step 2. Does this little green boy have arms or does it have no arms? And I don't know about you, but I don't see any arms. So it says go to step 3. In step 3, it's going to ask, is it hairy or not hairy? And he looks pretty smooth and not hairy to me. So that means that the alien name is going to be, hold on. So his mouth is open, go to step 2. And then he has no arms, so he has a name. That's my bad. So that's an example of what not to do. So for number 1, it says mouth open, go to 2. And then are there arms? No. So no arms means that the name is Alien quadlegicus. So we're going to actually write that here. Alienus quadlegicus. And then you would actually be able to cross this out once you were done because you would have already used the name, which is pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to do this second one now, this little yellow blobby boy. And we know that we're always going to start with step 1. So is the mouth open or is the mouth not open? Looks to me like his mouth is not open. So we're going to go to step 4. Does he have horns or no horns? The answer is, he doesn't look like he has any horns. So we're going to go to step 5. Step 5, does he have no legs or does he have legs? The answer is that he has no legs. So his name is going to be Alienus blobicus, right? And the name also fits because he looks like a blob. Over here, the name fits because he has 4 legs, quad leg, right? Okay, on to number 3, this little purple fuzzy boy. So number 1, step 1, is the mouth open or mouth not open? And the answer is that the mouth is not open, so let's go to 4. Number 4, does he have no horns or horns? And I don't see any horns, so we're gonna go to step 5. Does he have legs or no legs? And the answer is that he has legs. So his name would be Alienus fuzzicus. So Alienus fuzzicus. And the reason why I'm always capitalizing the first name again is that the genus is always capitalized. So they're all aliens. So they're all genus is all going to be Alienus. And then their species is not capitalized. So that's why the second word is not capitalized. So let's do this blue one now. Step 1, is the mouth open or mouth not open? The mouth is not open, right? So you're gonna go to step 4, and step 4 says horns or no horns. I see 2 horns right here. So the name is going to be Alienus stripicus. Stripicus. Let's do the pink one now. So the pink one right here at step 1, starting off, says, is the mouth open or not open? And it looks like to me that the mouth is open. So you're gonna go to step 2. Step 2 says that, does it have arms or no arms? And I see 2 little stubby arms right here. So it says go to step 3. In step 3 now, is he hairy or not hairy? And it looks pretty smooth to me. So not hairy would be Alienus tritoothicus. And that also fits because there are 3 teeth. This is also how I found out that when I was doing the first one, I did it wrong because I was jumping around and not paying attention, right? So you do have to pay a lot of attention while you're doing this to make sure that you're not accidentally jumping a step when you're not supposed to, like I did on the first one, right? Because I got to the name Tritoothicus and I was like, yo, this green alien does not have 3 teeth. So that's also when I knew I was wrong. It's a little bit harder with realistic species, but this one was a good example to be able to, catch your mistakes if you make them. Lastly, let's look at this red boy. If you had already crossed these all out as you were working through them, then you would automatically be able to find out what the name is, but we're still gonna follow the steps because we didn't do that. So step 1, is the mouth open or the mouth not open? Looks pretty open to me, so go to step 2. Step 2, does he have arms or no arms? And it looks like this alien's got arms, so go to step 3. Is the alien hairy or not hairy? It looks pretty hairy to me, so name would be Alienus hairicus. And with that, we have identified all of the aliens using this dichotomous key. Notice that every single step in the key has yes or no questions, and it tells you where to go on the key to the next step if you do say a yes or a no and you haven't yet gotten to a name. So here's another example of a star type of question. So it says, simple leaves have a single leaf on a petiole or a stem, while compound leaves have more than one leaflet on a petiole. This unknown leaf can be identified using the dichotomous key. So here they provided a dichotomous key and the leaf that we're trying to figure out what it is. Okay, so which tree does the unknown leaf come from? And the options are these species using their scientific names. And they're kind of hard to figure out because honestly, if you haven't studied botany before, you won't know what these names are. So you actually have to use the dichotomous key. They're helping you out by telling you what a compound leaf is and what a simple leaf is. And just based on this picture comparison, is this a compound leaf or a simple leaf? It looks like a simple leaf to me. Okay, so that means in step 1, are we going to go with A or B? Is it a compound leaf or a simple leaf? The answer is a simple leaf, right? So we're going to go to step 3. In step 3, there's options A and B. Is the leaf length 4 times or more greater than the width? Or is the leaf length less than 4 times the width? Right? The width is pretty wide. So I would say if you went like this, the length is only about 2 times, right? It's not 4 times, right? Because if you take this width and you double it, you get actually the length. So it's not 4. Okay, so we're going with 3B, which says the leaf length is less than 4 times the width. So we're going to go to step 4 now. Step 4 is the leaf pointed at the tip or is the leaf rounded at the tip? And to me, this looks pretty round. Okay, that means that the answer is, if its leaf is rounded at the tip, the answer is Quercus leaceyi. Okay, and you would, like in your notebooks, always place your star over the answer, and then you would move on. Here is a dichotomous key that can be used to identify some conifers. And conifers are trees that produce cones instead of like your typical seeds or flowers, okay? So like evergreens, like Christmas trees, those are conifers. And so this is a really big dichotomous key, but the question's actually asking you from the reverse. So the question says, based on the key, which of these best describes the leaves and cones of the longleaf pine? And so you're gonna look for where it says longleaf pine, and we found it right here. So longleaf pine right here has the characteristics, and this question is actually asking you to trace the answer backwards, okay? So we know that the longleaf pine has leaves mostly over 25 centimeters long and has no thorns on the cones, okay? So any answer that has similar, any answer that doesn't say leaves mostly over 25 centimeters and no thorns on cones is not going to be correct, okay? So that means thorny cones right here, C, is out. We're not doing C, okay? And then soft and leathery, we don't know yet, right? And we say that leaves are mostly over 25. So this says leaves with a length of 25? No. Okay, so C and D are both out right now, okay? So that means we're looking at A and B, right? Just because right here it says thorny, so it's wrong. And right here it says leaves are 25 centimeters. And we know that's wrong too, because this is mostly over 25. And this one is no thorns. Okay, that means we're stuck between A and B now. But we want to see which step told us to go to step 7. You want to look over here for the hint that told you to go to 7. And that's right here. So we're looking at step 6 now. So step 6 means that we were on this one where it says go to 7. So that means the longleaf pine has these characteristics right here. So that means that they have straight leaves that are more than 13 centimeters long. Okay, well, we knew that because the leaves are mostly 25 centimeters long, which means we're going to go back now. Which one told you go to 6? Step 5. And we know that the longleaf pine has this characteristics because we got to 6 anyway. So it's this one where it says leaves are mostly 3 in a cluster. Does this one say 3 in a cluster, or does this one say 3 in a cluster? Right, the answer would be A because this one says 3 in a cluster. Okay, so then we're going to move our answer to cover here like you would in your interactive notebook, and then we move on. Okay, there is a site right here that I'm going to actually ask you to go to and follow along. It's really, really cool. So if you open the link, and I'll include it in the Google Classroom post, it's actually going to help you do plant identification. So what I think is really cool too is because the plant identification here that's using a dichotomous style key is based on places near where I'm originally from in Maryland. So they're close to DC, and I actually worked at the pool that's right next to Rock Creek Park here. So you can pick this one if you want to. I'm going to just to show you kind of demo. and go through. So you're going to be given a bunch of plants. And when you have these plants, you're going to be able to identify them using dichotomous keys. And you don't have to actually read the dichotomous keys in the same setup that I just showed you, but you're actually going to click through. And so, for example, it says, click on the numbered circle to begin classifying the plant. This activity is completed when you have successfully identified all 6 plants in this habitat. So we're going to do this first one. So this first plant is herbaceous, and it says, click on the plant drawing to see your first 2 decision boxes, right? The yes or no question on step 1. Use the leaf guide that will appear on the right to help you select a box, and then continue making choices based on the drawing, the decision boxes you see in the leaf guide on the right, and then click on the yellow arrows to continue to the next set of options each time. So each time you do a step, it's going to ask you to click on continue to get to the next step. And then when you have successfully identified the plant, you can read the description and the scientific name on the species fact screen, and I'll tell you if you're right or not. So we're going to click on it, and it's going to talk about the leaf shape. So is it a simple leaf? Or is it a singular leaf? Or sorry, is it a simple leaf or is it a compound leaf, right? So if you look at these, are these simple leaves or are they compound ones? And if you click on here, you get to choose which one it is. And to me, this one looks like a simple leaf, right? It's each of these are a leaf. It's not a compound one with multiple branches and multiple stems. So I'd click on simple leaf, right? And now I'm gonna answer, is the length to width ratio greater or less than 1? So you're gonna look over here. And so this is going to be greater than 2 to 1, and this one is less than 2 to 1. So it looks like this one right here, each one of these leaves. So I would be clicking is greater than 2 to 1 on here. So it would be greater than 2 to 1. And is the leaf linear or is it not linear? It looks pretty linear to me, right? It's based on this picture up here where it says narrow and oblong. It looks pretty linear. So I click on that. And is it narrow or is it oblong specifically? It's not an oval. They look like little strands, almost like hair. So it'd be a narrow shaped leaf. And so it says you have selected it correctly. So we're going to continue by clicking the yellow arrow. And then you're going to be clicking on it again to tell me, is it lobed or is it not lobed? And they look like they're not lobed. I don't see any spikiness. And is it like that is it toothed? Or is it the entire margin? And it looks like the entire margin. So that's correct too. So you're going to go on, click continue. And then lastly, you're going to click on it one more time. Is it basal arrangement or is it stem leaf arrangement? And if you look at the top here, the stem leaf is like this and the basal is like this. It looks pretty similar to this. So it's probably a basal leaf arrangement. So congratulations, you have correctly identified it. So you're going to continue and it's going to tell you exactly what the plant's name is. And here we have the field garlic and here's a real picture of it. Okay, so you're going to actually go through and do all 6 and then you will submit to me a screenshot of the final picture that shows all of the 6 identified for your points. Then you'll do your interactive notebook and your exit ticket to finish out today.